2020 has been an incredible year. We're going to look back on it someday, and we're going to have lots of stories we're going to be able to tell on so many levels. In the meantime, we just wake up every morning, listen to the headlines, figure out how that's going to affect my life today and the life of my loved ones, and we plunge forward, trusting in our God who is with us, trusting in our God who loves us. We're coming up in less than 2 weeks, Thanksgiving. We all have Thanksgiving memories. Some really good memories, and perhaps for some of us, some painful memories. But there are memories. And what's this Thanksgiving going to be like? Should be very interesting. We really can't talk about it until it happens. So the other day I was thinking about the Thanksgivings in my life, with my large family, with my mother all by herself cooking meals for 30 people back before microwave ovens, things like that, and looking at all the pictures and all the slides, the videos, how incredibly tired she looked through it all. And I got to thinking about my own personal feelings during Thanksgiving, and I have to say, the best feelings, the strongest feelings, the warmest feelings I have about Thanksgiving come from my 18 years here at St. Joseph. When I first came, parish was very small, and it was in a lot of trouble. And I arrived in August, and came November, we were starting to see some new faces as just east of us things started to gentrify a little bit. There was some hope. So I was looking forward to our Thanksgiving liturgy, because I always felt Thanksgiving should be listed as one of the holy days where people are really encouraged to come to Mass. Because what is the Mass? It's a celebration of Thanksgiving, the sacrifice of the Mass. And no better way to thank God for the blessings God has given us than to do so at Mass on Thanksgiving. So we put together a beautiful liturgy with beautiful music, and we invited the parishioners to come. And the Wednesday before, when we had Mass with the school children, we told the school children to do two things. One is to shake their parents' bed if they weren't awake and remind them that there's Mass that day. That did not go over very well, we found out later. But we also encouraged the students, if when the meal was on the table and people were getting ready to eat and a prayer of thanksgiving hadn't been said, to stand on their chair and scream out, "Wait, stop, stop, we have to pray." And that had an interesting effect on a few families. One family said Grandma's teeth fell out, she was so scared. But people paused and prayed. So here we had the Mass, and there were 8 people in attendance. They enjoyed the Mass. It was just 8 people. And I felt really bad about that. So we went to work. And the next year, we created a liturgy on Thanksgiving morning where the children's choir would come and sing, and where, for the homily, we would have the children act out Shel Silverstein's book, The Giving Tree, which many of you are familiar with. And Alejandro, our janitor, created a perfect tree. It had a stump, a trunk, and branches. And it came apart at the stump, the trunk, and the branches. And the branches were decorated with real apples that were tied to the branches. And instead of one child playing the characters, the boy, the adolescent, the working man, and the old man, we had 4 boys and girls play the different roles, thus getting family and more people in the church. And so it went really well, except for one thing. I never liked the ending to that story. If you remember the ending, the boy is now an old man. He comes out, all that's left of the tree is the stump, and the tree says to him, I'm sorry, I don't have anything left to give you. And the boy just wants to sit. Well, sit here. And the boy sits on the stump, and thus it ends. Well, I waited a couple of years because I respected Shel Silverstein, and after he died, I changed the ending to the story. What we did was we drilled a little hole in the stump. So at the very end, there would be a shoot sticking out with just a few little leaves. And all four of the characters, the child, the teen, the businessman, the old man, they all came out and pointed and said, look, look, the tree is going to keep growing, and someday it'll have even more apples to share with others, more wood to share with others. So we gave a little bit of a resurrection story to the end of the Giving Tree. And then at the offertory, instead of a collection, we handed out apples to everybody in church. A lot of people came with their little ones. It was the quietest Mass we'd ever seen in church because the little ones gnawed on the apples the rest of the Mass. And I remember those Masses. And I remember the fact the numbers grew to 200 and 300 people in church for Thanksgiving morning, despite the fact of how busy people are getting the meal together, how some people traveled away from the parish for Thanksgiving. We still had a great celebration in church. I brought the same idea when I left St. Josaphat to St. Gertrude's, but they already had a pageant that was 50 years old that one of the teachers a half a century ago had written, and they'd done it every year, so I wasn't about to touch that. That was our pageant. It was the most politically incorrect Thanksgiving celebration pageant you'd want to see. But it was a delight anyways, it really was. And I still said to the children at the Mass the day before the school Mass, I no longer told them to shake the beds of their parents, but I did tell them about standing on the chair and saying, hey, we didn't pray. Let's pray before we eat the meal. And so one Wednesday night, before Thanksgiving, I was with some friends. We went to Gulliver's Restaurant, on Howard, the great pizzas out there. And a couple of the school families came in with their little children, and they sat at one table, and we were already at our table, and our meal came, and then their pizzas came. And all of a sudden, a little second grader jumped on her chair and screamed out, wait, we haven't prayed yet. And everybody in Gulliver turned and looked at them, and those families turned and looked at me, and I just waved to them. It worked, I guess. Those are my memories of Thanksgiving. I am hopeful that we will all continue to have great and blessed memories. Memories of God's love there for us. Memories of all that God continues to give to us. Those are what we need to be grateful for even now, even this year, even after all that's happened, even after what's going to happen that we don't even know of yet. We need to pause and thank God for the gifts that we have given to us. That's what the readings are all about. They remind us of all of God's generosity to us. Yeah, some of us have had some real difficult times. There have been people we know and love who have died. This past week, I was talking to my niece, her father-in-law died. To my cousin, her husband died of the virus. These are difficult times. People have had problems and difficulties at work. School has been really tough. Just the inability to have the freedoms that we took for granted has sometimes made life very, very difficult. And our relationships get caught up in that sometimes. And we need to continue to work on them and be there for one another. But when we stop and think about it, isn't it true that those of us sitting in this church at this particular moment in history, we have been blessed with so much. Maybe you're sitting with some of those blessings. Maybe you're holding one of those blessings, squirming in your arms a little bit. There are blessings upon blessings that we have taken for granted. If nothing else this year, let it be said for us, we will not take what God has given to us that has brought us joy and happiness and love for granted. And you know, the message of what it means to be thankful is very simple. We can't be thankful unless we share those blessings and those gifts with one another. That's not easy to do. We can't see a smile on somebody's face when we're wearing the mask. We can't sometimes hear the inflection of their voices. We can't be with them. We Zoom, we Skype, we send text mails and emails. But sometimes what gets lost is that human touch, that embrace, that handshake, that kiss that we just can't do. So we have to find ways of sharing all the love that God has given to us and the hope that comes with that love with those who need it. And we have to do it consciously, day in and day out. To say thank you to the cashier at Jewel who looked up and said to me, "Nobody ever thanks us, they just go to the manager when we do something wrong." And on cue, the manager walked by. I stopped her, I said, "Great cashier." 2 words. Hopefully it made her day. That's what we need to do, to be aware of those who are in pain and suffering around us and be there for them and show our gratitude to our God who loves us. And so there'll be opportunities to, maybe not literally, but figuratively, stand on a chair and say, "Stop, stop. We haven't given thanks yet." In our prayers, in our actions, more than ever, we need to be grateful, thankful, and giving. That's thanksgiving.